Hello and thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Morno Banlagbobo. As always, we've got quite a packed show for you. We'll start with our focusing or our searchlight on security and the power sector. Here is a rundown of our talking points. First, we'll look at the waterways security and analyzing Coast Guard bill and tackling security alarm over new terror group Lukarawas, and the power sector frequent grid collapse. Joining us shortly on the show is our special guest, Nnamdi Abana. He's a public affairs analyst. Also today on this program, we'll be looking at updates on the U.S. election. Don't go anywhere. When we come back from the break, we'll break it all down for you. Stay with us. Glad to have you back on the show. As I said, quite a packed show for you. So let's break it all down. Well, the Senate Committee on Marine Transport has announced the indefinite postponement of a scheduled public hearing on the Nigerian Coast Guard bill. This was originally set for November 7th. The session was slated to take place at the National Assembly Library and Resource Center with key stakeholders in attendance to address pressing issues in Nigeria's maritime sector. Now, this marks the second postponement of the hearing, which was previously scheduled for Wednesday, November the 5th. Though no new date has been set for the public hearing, the Senate Committee has assured stakeholders that discussions on the bill remain a priority. The bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Coast Guard, which is being sponsored by Senator Sani Eshilokun Lagos Central, passed second reading in the Senate on Tuesday after a thorough debate that has several senators speaking on advantage and disadvantages of the institution. Now, leading the debate on the general principles of the bill, Eshilokun said that the proposed establishment of the Nigerian Coast Guard would be charged with the sole responsibility of securing the maritime zones of Nigeria, aiming to protect the maritime and other national interests within these zones and subject to the jurisdiction of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He added that the Nigerian Coast Guard, as a special institution, would maintain a state of readiness to function as a specialized service in a time of war. In his submission on the bill, Senator Abdul Ningi, representing Bauchi Central Senatorial District, stressed the importance of establishing the Nigerian Coast Guard, which he emphasized would assist the vision of creating a blue economy for the nation. He dispelled fears that the responsibility of the Nigerian Coast Guard would clash with that of the Nigerian Navy, explaining that responsibilities of the agency will be clearly spelled out through the legislative processes. Also contributing, the former Senate leader and senator representing Kebbi Central Senatorial District, Yahaya Abdullahi, deferred to the previous speakers, saying that the mandate of the proposed Coast Guard was being worked upon for the Nigerian Navy. Hence, he urged senators to be circumspect in dealing with the bill. However, supporting to the bill, Senator Peter Nweboyi, representing Ebonyi North Senatorial District, said that establishment of the Coast Guard would be an additional value to security structure of the country, as well as provide job for teeming Nigerians. Also speaking, it was quite a heated session. Senator Yunus Akintunde, representing Oyo Central Senatorial District, expressed his experience while on oversight functions to some agencies related to the maritime services, explaining that the establishment of the Nigerian Coast Guard was most needed to complement their services, making a critical observation during her contribution to the debate. The lawmaker representing the Federal Capital Territory, Ireti Kingigbe, lamented that Nigeria was losing over $35 billion revenue due to the lack of existing Nigerian Coast Guard, stating that its establishment would boost the revenue profile of the economy. This is very important. Well, let's just take a listen to some of the sound bites from the Senate, and then we'll join our guest, Abana, shortly.
There is no marine and blue economy without Coast Guard. Suffice also to say that all the countries with the best navy, they have Coast Guards.
Is an initiative that if it is done, will complement what the Navy and other security agencies are doing.
The first people that will apprehend smugglers will be the coastal guards.
Annually, we lose 35 billion to illegal fishing.
We need to be extremely very careful on matters that has to do with national security.
Okay, so we get on with Nnamdi Abana, who joins us from Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Good to have you with us, sir.
You're welcome.
So what are your thoughts on the bill that has generated mixed reactions?
The Coast Guard bill, I don't think that it is necessary at this point in time. Why am I saying this? We already have the Nigerian Navy. Apart from the Nigerian Navy, we have the outfits headed by Tom Polo. You know, so why are we fond of creating many institutions, you know, that their function seems to overlap? I think that the government should strengthen the major institutions that we have. For example, the Nigerian Navy needs to be strengthened. And then another debilitating factor that is affecting our system is corruption. Even this particular institution they want to establish now, when it is eventually established, I tell you, the rot in the entire system will infiltrate into this new body and ravage it beyond repair. So I think that the bill is unnecessary. We should focus on what we have already on the Nigerian Navy, strengthen the institution, and then ensure that the right eggheads are, you know, at the upper echelon of its leadership, because I believe that everything rises and falls with leadership. With the right leadership, the Navy will be able to discharge its responsibilities effectively, rather than having several institutions that will be, you know, that will be, how do I put it? That will be wasting our resources. That's the point.
All right, so does this point to the ineffectiveness of the Nigerian Navy? Because if the Nigerian Navy was very effective, we wouldn't be talking about coastal guard in the first place.
When you have a device and the device develops some fault, what do? Do you throw it away immediately and get a new one? Or do you just abandon it in the corner of the house and or do you fix it? So we must learn how to fix our system when there is system failure. We must learn to fix the system. It's of no use jettisoning the existing system and going for another system or another institution, you know, thereby creating a multiplicity of institutions saddled with the same responsibilities. And at the same time, our resources will continue to be depleted because the federal government in the long run will be paying the Navy and at the same time will be paying the maritime institution that it is about to establish. So what's the point? It's just a conduit for wasting our scarce resources. When you have...
Okay, I get your point there, but there is this issue of providing jobs, which one of the senators raised during the course of the clip we played from their debate over the matter, and also talking about the fact that this would also strengthen already existing security outfits. What are your thoughts on this?
I agree with that position. You don't just create institutions for the mere purpose of, you know, recruiting people and reducing the unemployment rate. No, that shouldn't be the goal. That shouldn't be the goal. I listened to an analysis this morning on, concerning the security architecture that we currently have in the country. And from the analysis, it has become obvious that the Nigerian army is understaffed. So why not recruit more Nigerians into the Navy, to see to, once they are recruited, they will be trained. Of course, they will be paid, and they will help in dealing with the security challenges that we have across the country, rather than establishing a new institution. So that position, that idea is puerile. It's not a strong reason, for the establishment of a maritime organization.
Okay, Abana, moving to our next talking point, which has to do with tackling security, the alarm over new terror group Lukarawas by the Nigerian army. They gave the alert to the nation about the emergence of this new terror group that is now residing in Kebbi, Sokoto states. The military high command said the new terrorist group is known as Lukarawas. Now, of course, Major General Edward Buba, the Director for Media and Defense Media, was the one who gave this announcement. And this is coming just as the Defense Headquarters has declared 9 more terrorists wanted, but without a bounty on their heads. And of course, he said this on Thursday during a news briefing with newsmen. And he said that the new terror group emerged from the Republic of Niger after the coup that led to the breakdown of military cooperation between Nigeria and Niger. He said that the terrorists began incursion into the northern parts of Sokoto and Kebbi states from the Niger Republic and Mali axis, particularly after the coup in the Niger Republic. And Buba said that the coup was accommodated by the locals, who initially thought it meant well for them, and they failed to report the presence to the military and security agencies. And he gave the assurance that the troops had sustained its intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance operations to degrade the terrorists, adding that the terror group had continued to take advantage of the vast undergoverned areas to hide and invade troops as well as harass the locals. Let's have a listen to some of the things that Major General Edward had to say.
Nevertheless, troops are confronted with a new terrorist sect in the Northwest. This sect is known as Lukarawa. The Lukarawas are affiliated to terrorists from the Sahel, particularly from Mali and Niger republics. They began incursion into northwestern part of Nigeria, namely Sokoto and Kebbi states. And like I mentioned, they came in from Niger and the Mali axis. Now, why are we seeing this at this time? This came as a result of the coup that took place in Niger Republic. Prior to the coup, we had joint border operations with Nigerian security forces, which kept these terrorists at bay. Now, when that coup took place and there was a breakdown of cooperation between both countries, the terrorists took advantage of the gaps in cooperation and made incursions into northwest Nigeria. They exploited the difficult terrains and made incursions into remote areas in our northwestern states. And when they came in, they started spreading their ideology. Now the issue is, when they came in, did the people see them? They saw them. What did they do? They embraced them rather than report them. And what has that resulted to? The people saw them as friends. The same friends they thought were friends have turned to foes. And we did not get this report on time until they started creating some havoc. Nevertheless, we are on top of that situation. We have sustained our intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and accordingly carried out air interdiction, ground offensives to degrade these terrorists, find them, flush them, until we finally defeat them, the same way we have defeated terrorist groups in the northeastern part of this country.
All right, there's quite a lot to unpack. Abana, you still with us? Thank you for your time. I know you've been following this particular development, but what's your reaction? We've been dealing with Boko Haram, and now we've got another set of a group of terrorists to deal with.
It's an indictment on the Nigerian Immigration Service. Because if we have it boils down to having strong institutions. If we have a strong immigration system, I don't think this will even be a debate in the first place. But over the years, we've found out that we have foreigners trooping into our country unchecked. Today that we have the President-elect of the United States of America, everybody has been listening to what he has to say, what his lieutenants have to say, and most of them are hammering on strong immigration policy. Every serious nation must, as a matter of priority, give adequate attention to immigration. And that is what we are not doing. We have porous borders. Apart from foreigners trooping into our country, we've seen situations where large consignments of arms and ammunition make their way into the country. The question is, what is the Nigerian Immigration Service doing? So it boils down to institutions. We need to strengthen our institutions. Now we've not finished dealing with Boko Haram. We've not finished dealing with, the bandits. Now we are hearing about a new terror group. A new terror group that migrated from a neighboring country to our own country. Why should that be? Why should that be? It shows that our leadership is not serious. Else there'll be sanctions. Else heads will roll. So it's a pathetic situation. I think that the head of the relevant institutions should be quizzed by the Nigerian government or by the National Assembly. And if they are found culpable, they should be shown the way out. Governance is not about sentiments. Governance is all about competence. We need to get the right people that will get the job done.
Well, I also believe that we need to get the right people done. But you seem to be blaming immigration as the real challenge, given the peculiarity and concentration of the terrorists in the north. You recall what Major General Buba was talking about, that these people came in and befriended the locals, not knowing that these people that they refer to as friends have now become foes. What's your take? Do you still think immigration is to blame for all of this development?
It's a people problem. Why it is also a people problem. Why I'm saying this is this. The Northerners consider those people from neighboring countries who are Hausa speaking, they consider them as brothers. So in most cases, they are swayed by sentiments and they embrace them with open arms. This is exactly what happened, with the new terror group. They didn't come in as terror group. They came in, integrated themselves with the community, and decided to be unleashing terror on the people. Now I heard they've promised security for the people living within that geopolitical zone, while the people are donating their cows and so on to them. So these things shouldn't be. I expect that the Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces should give marching orders to the military to stamp them out, before it gets out of hand like Boko Haram. They should be stamped out. And then all our porous borders must be shut down. And then we should also get to the point of demanding for people's, foreigners' ID, their international passport and other details. If they are not able to provide that, then they should be repatriated back to their country. We've gotten to that level because we can't continue to toy with the security of Nigerians. Over the past 8 years, we know the human security challenges that we faced. Lots of people have been killed, lots of people have been maimed, lots of properties, have been lost. The loss is unquantifiable. So we need to wake up as a country and smell the coffee.
All right, talking about waking up, he made mention of the fact that some of these border areas are ungoverned. Is it not the duty of the army to secure such places? Yes, probably maybe local government heads or local government councillors and all of these, structures in terms of governance that is needed to be able to ensure that at least people are accountable for who come into a particular community. What are your thoughts? Do they really need those places to be governed in terms of maybe a political structure or system, so to speak, to ensure that they can monitor what is actually going on in these communities?
What I think by the expression ungoverned, it means that those areas, they've been left to themselves. There is no semblance of governance in those areas. But that is not to say that those geographical locations are not under a defined state or under a defined local government within the confines of Nigeria. So this is where the local government chairman and the governors should be culpable. Every governor should be able to give account of the security of lives and property, and then if your state is within a certain geographical location, it is your responsibility to give account of your sphere of influence. So the governors of these respective states should be talking to us on what is going on there, because sometimes the governors will come out to announce that they informed the military and they did nothing. So we've just heard from the military, we've not heard from the governors. Sometimes, like I said, the statements of the governors seem to contradict the statements made by the security operatives, like the Nigerian army, But all in all, there is system failure, a failure of the security architecture, and those loopholes must be blocked.
All right, so how should the army deal with locals who are accommodating these terrorists? Should they be arraigned so that they can provide more information? Because he said the information got to them late. So that means a lot of damage probably must have been done. But how do they get this on track?
They can be identified. Simple questions that even has to do with language will give them out. So that is why the Nigerian Army should be, not just the Nigerian Army, all hands needs to be on deck, the whole security architecture, the police, the army. There has to be a joint effort by the security organizations that we have in this country, even the DSS, in identifying these elements, these criminal elements, and, repatriating them back to their country, or if they've been found culpable, then they will be tried according to the laws of Nigeria and imprisoned. So that is just that. They can be identified even by their language and by their, in some cases, tribal marks.
All right, so let's move, brother, a bit on this issue of insecurity in the country. We've seen the president reshuffle his cabinet. Do you think it's time to reshuffle service chiefs? Talking about rejigging the security system in the country.
By we're in the president's shoes, I mean, the reshuffling of the security apparatus has to be periodic. It has to be performance-based. So there should be an SOP for the heads of the various heads of security institutions that we have in the country. There has to be targets. Those targets must be met. Yes, we may say, oh, these are security issues, but if you don't set target, if you don't have a goal, then you won't be able to make any remarkable accomplishments. So there has to be goals. And then, because of the nature of the security challenge that we are having, we've heard about issues of compromise, security operatives compromising with some of these criminal elements. So I think it is incumbent on the government to do a regular reshuffle of these of our security apparatus, very necessary, just to ensure that if any relationship is being established, that their backbones are broken. I think it is very necessary. Then for those that are not performing, they should be shown the way out. So it shouldn't just be all about retirement age or the number of years you've spent in service. It should be performance-based. Once the generals and the other heads of the security agencies, like the Inspector General of Police, the DIGs, even the Director of the DSS, and so on, once they know that their job is hanging on the balance, that their job is based on performance, I think that everybody will sit up, because nobody would like to lose his job at this point in time. So that should be the best approach for tackling the security challenges that are plaguing our nation at this particular time.
Okay, so let's move away from the issue of security, but just one more question. This one has to do with the politics of appointments and all of that. What are your thoughts quickly on the promotion of the acting chief of army staff, Oluyede, to chief of army staff? There's been, I won't say mixed reactions so far, but of course, God rest Major General Lagbaja, and of course, condolence to his family. I mean, it's not easy, to just grapple with the reality of what has happened. But as you've said, the job must be done. He has to continue. Oluyede has actually pledged to continue from where, Lagbaja stopped. But what's your reaction before we wrap this up?
For me, I think that's nature. Even nature abhors vacuum. So within the rank and file of the Nigerian Army, there is a vacuum, and that vacuum has to be filled. So that's the reason why the president made that appointment. Yes, we've heard about, why did the president make the appointment even before the death of the lieutenant general? The thing that people don't understand is this: when it comes to top army officers, such announcements are not made immediately. There are several considerations to be made before such an announcement is made. So the president, in his wisdom, decided to make those appointments before he announced the transition of Lieutenant General Labaja.
All right. Thank you for your thoughts, Abana. Please do stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, just one more thing to look at, and that's the power sector. What is going on? I mean, this past week alone, this week, we've seen grid collapse almost twice. We'll talk about this shortly before we go to the U.S. election updates. To stay with us.
What makes the political system what it is today? What are the recurring issues? Order. The tussle for power.
An extremely problematic area.
The tension. The instability of the system. Join Ellen 24/7 as we take you inside the local and international political arena in the world of politics.
Apologize for saying that I was corrupt. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Watch politics now on Ellen 24/7.
Don't miss Politics Now on Ellen 24/7.
All right, glad to have you back. It's been quite a roller coaster with Nigeria's power generation. Well, the national grid has collapsed for the second time in 3 days, leading to blackouts in several parts of the country. A check on the Nigerian System Operators Portal, nigrid.org, showed that power generation dropped to 0 megawatts at 11:30 a.m., affecting generation companies all across the country. But there's been updates. Of course, the Minister for Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabo, has ordered the Transition Company of Nigeria TCN and all other relevant agencies of the ministry to begin the immediate implementation of the recommendations of the Interagency Committee set up to address the incessant grid collapses in the power sector. And this is as the TCN appealed for understanding among Nigerians on the possibilities of intermittent disruptions as repair work begins on the grid. A special advisor to the Minister on Strategic Communications, Honorable Bolaji Tunji, quoted the minister as saying that all relevant agencies in the ministry must brace up for the immediate implementation of the recommendations of the committee, which was submitted on Wednesday, the 6th of November, 2024. Meanwhile, the TCN has assured consumers that efforts were being intensified to ensure uninterrupted power supply to them. But the question is, how long are we going to be going back and forth about this? Well, a statement by Ndidi Umba, the General Manager, Public Affairs of TCN, on Thursday said the agency was working to ensure the full and immediate implementation of the recommendations of the committee to save Nigeria from the incessant grid collapses. And the TCN has identified sudden rise in frequency from 50.33 hertz to 51.44 hertz as the cause of the latest national grid collapse on Thursday, noticing that disturbances at the grid, a second in the space of 3 days, started at approximately 11:29 a.m. and recovery efforts are on the way. That's what they are saying, and that within 28 minutes, that the recovery is still going, and disclosing that the frequency spike was caused by issues encountered at one of their substations, which had to be shut down to prevent further escalations or complication. Those are their words. Well, it's not getting funny. Businesses have been affected. People who are on Band A are paying, heavily for power. But I mean, if it's not available, what is the point of paying for them at all? Good to have you back with us, Nnamdi Abana. So another day, another national grid breakdown. Your reaction, please.
A scholar rightly said that taxation without representation is tyranny. Why am I saying this? We've seen within a few months, we've seen an astronomical increase in the amount of money we pay for power. We saw the introduction of the band system, band A, B, C, and D, and so on, even though later on they surreptitiously migrated almost everybody to band A, and they are fleecing Nigerians, of their hard-earned resources. That being said, with all the resources that they are generating, it is appalling to note that our national power infrastructure is yet to be improved upon. All we've been hearing, are excuses on why the power grid, just this month, did I say this month or this week, it has collapsed twice. Then throughout the year, I think about seven times or so. This shouldn't be. It shows that our money is not working for us. They collect the taxes, they collect all the revenues, and they don't plunge it back into the national infrastructure. All they do is to come up with excuses. I heard that the minister was talking about Nigeria transiting from hydroelectricity to solar energy because of the incessant collapse of the national grid. The pertinent question that we should be asking at this point is this: how long is it going to take for all that is required to be supplied to every household in Nigeria? And let's note that it has not been long that many people got their prepaid meter. Some are still at the verge of getting their, prepaid meter. I think, is it up to 5 years? I don't think it's up to maybe 5 years or thereabouts. They are yet to network the whole country. And here we are talking about a new technology, solar energy, and so on. Of course, the minister should know that many Nigerians are no longer resorting to the national grid. Most homes are powered by solar. Some homes are powered by generating sets, and so on. So it's a failure of leadership. We need the right egghead that will solve this challenge. Recall that during the era of President Goodluck Jonathan, Professor Barton Naji was appointed to oversee the power sector, the power ministry. And within a short period of time, he was able to get it right. Just like I mentioned earlier on, all the incompetent personnel that sabotaged and frustrated the effort of government in getting power to various homes, they were sacked, and he had to put up the necessary systems and structures within the power sector. And before long, within a short period of time, most households could boast of more than 12 hours of electricity. So it's, like I said earlier on, it has to do with leadership, getting the right people to do the right job at the right time. We don't need square pegs and round holes, who can't differentiate their left from their right, and that has been the bane of Nigeria, of governance in Nigeria.
Okay, so let's talk about what the minister said, going back to the recommendations of one interagency committee set up, which was supposed to assess the grid collapse. I mean, did it have to take, frequent, grid collapse before they resorted to adopting that particular recommendation? I wonder what your reaction is to this development.
Let me tell you something. When the government comes to their wits' end, that is when you start hearing about, we've set up a committee to look into this, we've set up a board to look into this. Let me tell you the truth. They are not going to emerge with any tangible result. the outcome will end in the dustbin of history. When the government wants to work, it goes ahead to work. Forget about all this setting up of committees. Was the minister bereft of ideas before he was appointed the Minister of Power? Does he have time to think about his job? Does he consult? Does he engage in comparative analysis that is trying to compare what is obtainable in other countries? Let me not even talk about Europe and America. Let's come home to Africa, places like Rwanda where things are working. Has he tried to compare notes? Has he traveled to see how other people are doing it? That is the fundamental challenge of Nigerians. We sit on a table and we take decisions that we know nothing about. He needs to move around, compare notes with others and see what they are doing, like a peer review mechanism or system. That is what I expect him to do. But this idea of setting up committees, it will not work because it has never worked.
Okay, now there are experts who has called for the transmission of power to be privatized. Are you in support of this? Power generation, power transmission, that seems to be where the issue is. Since we privatized the distribution of power via the discos, we've not been having challenges regarding power. At least some can argue that power is stable. So, but what is the brain behind, government still handling this power generation and transmission thing?
There has to be the sincerity of purpose on the part of government to see to it that we have a seamless transition, into a private sector-led power generation, even distribution, and so on. Look at what is happening with Dangote Petroleum today. He's been able to establish his company, is ready to supply petrol from day one. His major challenge has been government. We were told that NNPC has been privatized. We saw the name change from NNPC to NNPCL. But up till today, they are still calling the shots. They are still the regulators, and at the same time, they are wearing the toga of a privatized institution. So the question is, will the government have that sincerity of purpose to allow a private sector-led generation system to thrive? That is the pertinent question that we should be asking.
All right, many would argue that because of our enormous population, over 200 million plus, it's going to be practically a difficult thing for government to be able to cater for power for everybody. So should the government be more invested in the likes of solar power rather than gas or hydropower?
For me, privatization is the way to go. States should generate their own electricity. I've been harping on this for over 10 years. I've said it in your station years back. Privatization is the way to go. But the government must be sincere enough not to interfere in the privatization process. Yeah, but there has to be a regulator just to ensure that the competitors, that they compete favorably and that the masses are not exploited. That's the only way. That's the only way. And who said it must be solar energy? We can have both hydro energy, solar energy, and other alternative sources of energy, depending on the resources and the disposal of the respective states that we have across the country.
Well, Abana, many Nigerians are not even waiting for that to be a possibility, as many people have invested in solar power. So we're not even waiting for the government to do that. But when we think, imagine if the white man is in Nigeria and with the enormous heat supply from the sun, they would have been able to do something magnificent and something remarkable with power generation. I remember back then watching NTA of those days, playing documentaries, and back then I recall them using solar power, and it took, just a few years ago before we said, a proper marketing of solar power, which is a more reliable, sustainable source of power given technological development so far. You look at the Tesla car and one of the brands which runs on solar and the other one on electricity. That's what innovation is all about. But our time is up on this segment. Once again, I want to thank you, Nnamdi Abana, a public affairs analyst, for joining us today from Abuja. Thank you for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, our political analyst in-house, Ayobami Adeyemo, will be joining us to make sense of some of the updates on the U.S. presidential elections. Of course, it's not just presidential elections. The Senate is also up for grabs, actually grabbed by the Republicans, and the House also, that is still on. It has not been called yet whether it will go for the Republicans or the Democrats, but currently the Republicans are leading the votes. We'll be right back to stay with us.
What makes the political system what it is today? What are the recurring issues?
Order.
The tussle for power.
An extremely problematic area.
The tension. The instability of the system. Join Ellen 24/7 as we take you inside the local and international political arena in the world of politics.
Apologize for saying that I was corrupt. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Watch politics now on Ellen 24/7.
Don't miss Politics Now on Ellen 24/7.
Glad to have you back on Politics Now. I'm not alone on set. I've got with me our in-house political analyst, Ayobami Adeyemo. Good to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Mono. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, we've been following the U.S. elections. We've got some updates to share with our viewers. Defeated Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris tells supporters that, in quote, we must accept the results of the U.S. election, while promising to help Donald Trump as he heads back to the White House. Let's take a listen to what she said.
A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny. And anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it.
All right, Ayobami, that seemed very difficult, to vocalize. What are your thoughts on her response?
Well, it's a very good, move. It's a very good move in a good direction, coming from the Vice President Kamala Harris, and after that, I should say it's a rigorous, exercise. A lot of people felt, she also felt, our supporters felt it will go towards a direction, but you could see the pain, the pressure, but at the same time, bitter to chew or to swallow, but she still had to come out to do that particular address to our supporters. And it also brings to one's mind the beauty of democracy. You recall when President Donald Trump coming in as president-elect now, when he also had, when he was defeated by President Joe Biden, he never had this chance, to accept that. He never had the chance to tell his supporters to support the new government. Eventually, what it did was, it triggered a lot of, agitation towards that direction. But for the Democrat, I think it's a good direction and the right way. So I expect that, President Donald Trump will also embrace Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, the Democrats, to see how they can form a government that I believe is more about, the United States, the American people.
Most definitely. I mean, I'm just trying to process $1 billion spent. According to reports, the campaign, Harris campaign, is $20 million in debt. So after spending $1 billion, you're still in debt, and you still did not win the election with all of Hollywood machine backing you. I mean, it must be pretty devastating.
It is.
Well, to another update, of course, a smiling U.S. President Joe Biden has pledged to ensure a peaceful transition of power on January 20th, when former President and now President-elect Donald Trump is due to be inaugurated as the country's 47th head of state. Offering Trump his congratulations, Biden said, "We accept the choice the country made as he tried to send an upbeat message despite the gloom in his Democratic Party." Biden said he had also promised a smooth transition in a phone call with Trump on Wednesday, during which he invited the Republican leader to a meeting at the White House as Democrats speak up the pieces after Trump's decisive victory on Tuesday. Some in the party have expressed frustration that the 81-year-old Biden did not decide to abandon his bid for re-election up until the summer, despite long-standing voter concerns about his age, as well as widespread dissatisfaction with high inflation and the U.S. role in the slaughter of thousands of innocent civilians in Gaza and Palestine, and migration over the border with Mexico. I mean, Ayobami, the delusion with Democrats, I mean, it's like they seem not to get why Trump won.
Yes.
I mean, look at, what are your thoughts on some of the things Biden has?
Trust me, they don't even have that clue. They don't have the understanding. They didn't see that coming at all. They still have that. It's so difficult for them to understand how Kamala didn't win and why Trump will win. But it all boils down to the fact that Joe Biden played a major role, in bringing this to Kamala's camp.
How is it Biden's fault?
Well, definitely, Kamala had no chance. Kamala had no chance to be judged as Kamala. She was judged by the administration of Joe Biden. I mean, so she could not.
His face, he was smiling like this. Finally passed over. Now that our party did not win,
let's go and rest.
So upbeat, full of energy.
His speech. It shows how relieved the president is. At this point in time, knowing fully well that the pressure is no more on me. The pressure is now being passed to the next administration. All I want to do is just to prepare my desk, try to clear my desk and pass the whole button to Donald Trump. And like you already said again, the smiles also indicate, and of course send a signal, a message that it's not my fault.
You wanted to remove me. Now
it's not my fault.
And the election has not gone in your favor.
No, it's not even that message alone. He's passing the message to his own party himself. The Democratic Party themselves. He's passing the message that, come, guys, don't blame me. It's not my fault. We fought a good fight. But like I always tell you, it's not about winning alone. It's about America first. And he kept smiling. You could see the energy in Joe Biden that was criticized when he had that debate with Trump. If that Joe Biden that gave this speech was the same Joe Biden that contested in that particular debate with Trump, probably there won't be any call for step aside. Well, Kamala will be there. But hey, what it has happened, and it's divine. So definitely.
So he lives with a smooth record, not the candidate that puts the Democrats in the current situation that they are at the moment.
I feel he still has some days to tidy up that history to make it a smooth one for him.
I'm suspecting that from now we're going to see him smiling more often.
Yeah. So
than when he was booted out of.
We will see smiling Joe, not sleeping Joe now.
Smiling Joe, not sleeping Joe, indeed. Well, our final update before we wrap up the show: President-elect Donald Trump on Thursday announced that Susie Wiles, one of his two campaign managers, will be his White House chief of staff, entrusting a top position to a political operative who helped the Republican win the election. And the appointment was the first of what is expected to be a flurry of staffing announcements as Trump girds for a return to the White House on the 20th of January. And as gatekeeper to the president, the chief of staff typically wields great influence, and the person manages with the White House staff, organizes the president's time and schedule, and maintains contact with other government departments and lawmakers. I mean, this is quite shocking for most people because the Democrats always painted Trump to be someone who was anti-woman. But now he's made history, not just with a strong political comeback, but appointing a woman as the chief of staff. How significant is this?
A good way to go, you know. I think we're going to see the second term of Donald Trump, you know, in a way that most people would not expect, probably correcting those mistakes that was made in the first, you know, hopefully. And of course, probably with hunting those that he felt, you know, or he feels needs to be correct. I mean, they needed to be corrected at the same time. But, you know, a good way in a good direction. Susan, her name is Susie, you know, what again? Susan, yeah, she, you know, she's been elected. I mean, she's been appointed as, you know, chief of staff, the first female White House chief of staff. And during his campaign, that's Donald Trump's second run campaign, she played a major role behind the scene, ensuring that, you know, all those Donald Trump's movement were really reduced completely. You know, we saw Donald Trump in the first time when he was running, how, you know, he wanted to just say everything. But this time around, you recall, even during his campaign, he said, Susie, am I permitted to say this? You know, knowing fully well that somebody is checkmating him. So
one of the beautiful takeaways from the analysis I saw on Fox today was the fact that she ran a campaign on let's Trump be Trump.
Yeah.
Let's not brand Trump to be somebody.
And, you know, like what she said too, she said she's not going to control Trump, she's going to control things around Trump. So Trump is the main Trump, but things will be controlled around Trump. So don't limit Trump, let Trump be Trump, but things must be controed around him. So I give that up.
Okay, well, our time is up. That's the much we can take. Thank you so much for being with us. And Ayobami, thank you for coming to make sense of what's going on.
Thank you so much.
In the U.S. presidential
Thank you so much.
elections. Once again, my name is Morno Balagoba. Thank you for staying with us, and bye for now.